Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Ruven speaking to you from south of Jerusalem. Today is the 28th day of the month of Cheshvan, 5783. It's November 22nd, 2022. This coming Shabbat is Parashat Toldot, the generations of Yitzchak Avinu, Isaac, our father, beginning in Genesis chapter 25, verse 19, concluding in Genesis chapter 28, verse 9. This coming Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday is Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the new month of Kislev, the month of Chanukah, the month of dreams. There's a lot to talk about concerning Kislev, a lot to talk about concerning Parashat Toledot, but this Temple Talk edition is a special edition, and I'm going to not talk about the Parsha or Rosh Chodesh anymore from this point on, but I'm going to tune into an interview that I conducted a few days ago with Hanan Kapietsky, who is the inspiration and the man behind the bringing of the 5 parot adumot, the 5 red heifers, to Israel this past summer. And he has a fascinating story to tell. And so I am just going to, right now, let you hear in his own words what Hanan has to say. So here he is. Hanan, tell it himself.
Okay, so hi everybody, and thank you for listening. Thank you for having me here on this show. Just to give a little bit of a background, I'm from Jerusalem. I grew up here my whole life. My parents are Olim that came to Israel from the States. Today I work in a number of projects. And one of the days, we're talking around 2 years ago, I was walking up to Temple Mount. And I was just thinking to myself, why don't we have all those Jews that are just down below up here on Temple Mount? Why isn't everybody coming up here to pray at the holiest place? And of course I know the answer, and one of the answers is that people believe that they're impure and specifically from the deceased, and therefore without having the red heifer or red heifer ashes, they will not be able to actually then purify themselves and then feel comfortable enough to walk in areas, even if in most areas you're allowed to go, they would not feel comfortable to even go in those areas. And therefore, until there isn't the red heifer, I would say many would not go up. Happened to be in that time when I was going up, there was a few things were happening that same week. So firstly, when I went up, Rav Yisrael Ariel from the Temple Institute, the founder and the father of the Temple Institute, he was walking up himself, and I was thinking about this while I was walking around, and I said to him, I saw him and I said, "Hi Rabbi, my name is Hanan, if I could ask you a few questions." And he said, sure, go ahead. And I asked him, isn't the biggest issue about the red heifer the fact that we don't have any priest, and the fact that we don't have the site, or actually the cow? And he said that actually the biggest issue is, you're definitely right, the cow is an issue. The site is also some type of an issue. The site where the red heifer, where to prepare their ceremony. I mean, just open up brackets. The ceremony happens on Mount of Olives, across from the Temple Mount. It doesn't happen on the Temple Mount. It's a site that's not exactly. It's not a sacrifice. It's more like a ceremony. So close brackets. So basically he said that the issue is not the priest. Because the Temple Institute has between 5 to 6 priests that are ready to go. They watched over themselves from when they were born. When I mean they're ready to go, it means they are pure. They never got themselves impure, and they were never born. They were born in a hospital and in other places where one would go to become impure. And therefore, he said that having the Kohanim is not the problem. Ezov, the hyssop, is not an issue. We know exactly what the hyssop is. Erez, which is the cedar trees, we know exactly what they are. We don't have an issue. We even have many of them growing in Jerusalem, and even on Mount Olives itself, we have a few cedar trees so that we don't have to walk too far. Tolat Shani, which is a special type of so-called worm, it's we also know exactly how it is. It's like this scarlet type of orangey, reddy color that comes from specific on trees, what grows on them. So we don't have issues in that regard. The main issue is the cows and the site. So now I just want to, that was a little bit the conversation, and we're going to go back to this conversation because it's important. That same week, actually, one of my dear friends and partners in one of the projects that I'm working with came to me and said, listen, I have this plot of land that we were thinking of what to do with it, because during COVID, it actually, the registration of it was complete. It was a long process. It's on Mount of Olives. And do you have any ideas what we could do with this? So happened to be that actually I was talking to my brother Eitan, and I was like, listen, we have this plot of land. What do we do with it? Mount of Olives. And he said, you know what, maybe you guys should do like a restaurant or some type of visiting center or something there that has to do with the red heifer, because historically that's where the red heifer ceremony happens. So this is in the background, okay? And now I hear, we're going back to the Temple Mount. I'm trying to picture it. We're walking around, and at some point also Rav Ariel said, if it's okay with you, and in a very polite, nice way, he said, I came here to pray, and if you don't mind, let's talk when we go down off the mountain. So when we got off the mountain, he said, yeah, what else can you tell me? So I said, listen, if it's the site, you should know we have this site on Mount of Olives. He's like, what? You have a plot of land, a Mount of Olives that could be relevant for the red heifer ceremony? So he said, what? You have a plot of land? I need to see it immediately. And so he said, listen, my son's going to call you, Rav Azariah Ariel. Again, brackets, Rav Azariah Ariel is the #1 expert in the world, for sure in the rabbinical side, but even more in all the other elements of the red heifer. He's been studying this for the past 8 years, only in the red heifer, and everything has to do with purity and impurities. So he actually called me up. We went over there, me and my partner, Tzachi, and Rav Azariah Ariel. And he's like, wow, this is magnificent. This is unbelievable. It's unreal. So we dedicated basically the foundation, Abonai Israel, dedicated that plot of land for the red heifer ceremony. So now we have the plot of land. So now we're left is with the red heifers.
Right.
We need to find those red heifers. So we started to do a lot of research, and I mean, we're not cowboys, we're not ranchers. We like cowboys, we like ranchers, but so we started to figure out, and one of my projects is in business development, and I mean, pretty much most of the day I'm calling up different businesses and creating, in business development, that's exactly what you do. You do cold calls, you have hot leads, different types. So yeah, let's start to call up just ranchers and start to look and start to map out red heifers around the world. I mean, we're living in a day and age where we have plenty. We're not missing anything. We have everything in our, if you go into supermarkets, you're not missing, food and in medical, and so we should for sure have also, red Angus or red heifers. And we started to learn, and we started to see that there's different breeds of cows, and actually thousands and thousands of breeds. And one of the breeds that actually, it's pretty much all red in a certain way, is the red Angus. So we start to cold call these farmers that are part of the Association of the Red Angus in the United States. And I'll tell you one of the calls. One of the calls, I call up this guy. His name is Donald. I say, hi, Donald. I'm calling from Jerusalem. I'm a rabbi. We're searching for the red heifer. And he hung up the phone. That was the first thing he did. So I called him back. I said, this is not, it's not a scam. I'm trying to call you. I'm looking for a red heifer. I know it sounds crazy. He said, boy, this doesn't sound crazy. It's written in the book of Numbers. I'm like, what? You know the Bible? He said, yeah, I know the Bible. It's I said, I can't believe it. Like, well, I didn't even know. Firstly, me as a Jew living here in Israel, we don't really, personally, I didn't really come into contact with so many Christians, especially not Christians in the middle of Texas, ranchers, and that they know the Bible. So to me, that was a shock on its own. And he also would like to say is that, like, we'll ask the question also, why do we need the red heifer? Why did God command us? And I think that this is exactly it. It's exactly this, dialogue and this connection between Jews and Gentiles, and trying to bring us back after so many hundreds of years of hatred or different, inquisitions and other things that happened between between us, and here we are. We're having this dialogue, and we're getting together and becoming more friends. And actually, we're seeing that we have a lot of common. We both know the book of Numbers. We both, know this commandment. And so Donald actually ended the conversation saying, "No, boy, I don't have any of these red heifers, especially when you talk about no blemishes, because a red heifer needs to have 3 typical things: no blemishes, it has to be all red, and it has to make sure that it was never yoked with anything on it." So basically, he says the biggest issue is none of the 2. I have red heifers that are totally red, but we actually tag their ears. So basically, there aren't any good ones. But what happened was actually the miracle came 2 weeks later, and I get a phone call from Donald saying, with the most excited voice, "Listen, Rabbi, you won't believe it, but COVID, hit as it hit the whole world, and my help that was supposed to come and tag my heifers over the past 3 months didn't show up. He came and he didn't come for a lot of weeks. Then we did other things, but at the end of the day, when I asked, and he said, yeah, I didn't tag these 7 heifers, or 6. I don't remember, 6 or 7 of these heifers. And we went and we searched and we saw, and they were still good. They were 3-4 months old heifers. Mm-hmm. So I heard this immediately. I called up a friend of mine from Dallas, who was a rabbi there, and he went over with 2 cars. They drove to Comanche, okay, like this Japanese cool name in Texas, and to get to Comanche, and that's where this farm was. And another miracle, we have Zoom, okay? Me, Rav Ariel, and Donald could all be in the same phone call, searching and looking at these heifers, inspecting them, top to bottom. Every heifer took us around between half an hour to 40 minutes to inspect and check them and make sure that, if they're any good. And the truth is, out of all the heifers, one of them was a maybe. All the others were no good. We found different white hairs in different places. But one of them was like, we couldn't tell. And the team that was there just couldn't tell, is the hair black or is it very dark red? So we said, okay, we have to then come and check it out. And we flew to Texas and we went and we checked the heifers. And we also came out with the same conclusion that it was a bit of a maybe. But the truth is, and this is one of the commandments, is that it needs to be in its 3rd year. So when I say in its 3rd year, it needs to be 2 years and a month, pretty much old, in order to be relevant and applicable for the red heifer ceremony. So basically we said we'll wait it out anyhow. In the meantime, we said we need to, if this happened with cold calls, we need to get the word out. We need to spread the word all across the United States into every single Red Angus magazine, and that's what we did. We put out ads, we put out emails, and we also started to learn that there's more than just Red Angus. There's something called Red Brangus. There's Saint Garnita. There's these different types of breeds that are also pretty much red. And we started to get phone calls and emails, and we started to search. And my wife, one evening, at the beginning of these searches, it's 9 o'clock at night, and she's used to me doing business calls at those hours. All of a sudden, she hears a moo coming in and says, "What's going on?" And she sees us, me and Rabbi Ariel, are searching red heifers, in Texas. She's like, "Whoa, okay, thanks for updating me on these very important meetings." So that's what was going on for many months. And eventually we got to a farmer, very interesting, where we call him up and he says, "Listen, I have what you're looking for. I have here Miss America." And I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm a rabbi, Miss America, like what's... I'm not sure what you... So he said, no, Miss America, like the cow, Miss America. Like apparently there's these competitions, fairs, and all these, all across America for like the most beautiful cow in so many different ways. And basically he raises or breeds these cows, and he won many times, multiple times, Miss America in his cows. People come to him to buy his cattle. If you guys are cowboys out there and you want a really good cowboy here, this is a good advertisement for him. Urbanowski, that's his ranch. It's around like an hour away north of Houston. But anyhow, so we get to his farm, and he put aside for us these 3 red heifers. One of them was not good, but the other 2 were unbelievable. And it was like the most exciting moment to be there, Havrav Ariel and some other rabbi from Israel on the Zoom. And we're there on the farm, and we're searching, and we're looking, and we're checking every hair, and we're going back and forth, and we're like, she's perfect. These two are just perfect. It was the chills that day, and the excitement was huge. And then we went to another farmer, and here we'll open up. These guys, their name is Davenports. They're very special two brothers that started this farm, in the 90s when they started the farm, because they wanted to take over. The grandfather had a farm. Their father went out of business, and they wanted to come back to it. And they said, okay, what are we going to raise? And one of the Davenports, his name is Ty, he said, we need red Angus. And not only do I want red Angus, I want the most reddest Angus one could find, because they're very, very connected to Christianity and to the Bible. And they said, the temple's going to need the red Angus at some point, because we read it in the numbers. And so if we're already going to go for a cow, let's go for red Angus. And they start to raise these cattle. This is in the 90s we're talking here. From a friend to a friend to a friend, we got to this farm, and they didn't see our ads. They didn't know about them, but because of the friend that did see, and from another one, at the end we got to them and we sat with them. And we're inside of the living room, and one of the brothers, Ty, comes out, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, the whole 9 yards, beautiful, like a very Texan accent. Me coming from Israel, I could understand probably every other word, but it was really, really a special sight. And then his brother walks in. Now, his brother, he has a suit, no tie, but like a suit, looking good, no cowboy hat. And we're like, what do you do? I mean, he said, listen, I'm with my brother, we're partners, but I also am inside in the diamond business. I'm a jeweler. I have diamonds also in the Bursa in Tel Aviv, in the Ramat Gan, but also all around the world. And then it just hit us. We're like, what? Do you know the story of Dama ben Atina? And here I want to tell everybody here the story. This is exactly what I told him. I told him there's this Talmudic story of Dama. He was a son of Natina, and in the times the high priest had the ephod on him, and he was missing one of the Choshen stones, one of the 12 stones. Yeah. The breastplate is missing one of those 12 stones. And they heard that there's this jeweler in the area of Ashdod or Ashkelon. This is in the Roman period, that he's a jeweler, a Gentile. And they said they have to go, that's where you'll find that stone. So they went to him. They knocked on the door, and the Dama answered. Natina, Dama says, my father is sleeping. But if you would like, come back in a few hours. I'm sure the key to the safe, I'll be able to, I'll be able to open up, and we'll be able to sell you this stone. And it costs X. They said, no, listen. You don't understand. We're from the temple. We need it now. We'll give you 10X for that stone immediately. Every minute that's passing, the priest doesn't have it on him. We want it now. He said, no, I'll explain to you. My father's sleeping, and I respect my dad. I don't want to wake him up. I'll wait. The second he wakes up, I'll come out to you. I'll tell you. But you guys please wait here. And they're like, what? Okay. So they waited. There's nothing, he didn't give another option. The father woke up from his nap. And he then, of course, opened the stone and showed it to them. And they were like, that's it. We're buying it. And here's 10X. He said, no. I don't want 10X. It costs X. I don't want you to buy my merit for this stone. So they said, we never seen something like this. And they said, you will be blessed. And we also know this, from Jacob. Those that bless Israel will be blessed. You will be blessed. And the truth is, the following year, in his herd, he had a small herd, a red heifer was born. And they brought that red heifer to the temple, and it was used, and it was one of the 9 red heifers that were used in history. We know that the Mishnah talks about that there's been 9 red heifers used to date. The Maimonides comes around 900 so years ago, says that the 10th will come in the Messiah, will be the one in the times of Messiah, or that the Messiah will be the one that actually will sacrifice the 10th. So basically one of those 9 are coming from Dama ben Atina's ranch.
So these two brothers, Gentiles, just like in the story in the Talmud, and he's a jeweler and a rancher, And the whole story was about kibud avein, about honoring your father. And it was the merit of his tremendous honor of his father that this all came about, and that the red heifer was born. And now your story is contemporary, modern, up to date. We're seeing the same thing all over again. Amazing.
And you know what? I didn't think about it even till this moment that you just said it, actually, is that now that I think about it, when they said that one of the reasons why they started the farm was like, you know, to honor kind of the family and to honor their fathers. Wow. You know? And all of a sudden, so going back to that living room, we said, okay, so let's go out. We'll see if you have any red heifers. And the truth is, we found by them 3 red heifers that day that were perfect. They were most beautiful things ever. I mean, one of them was born 3 days before we came. Mm-hmm. Now, it was a beautiful, beautiful day. And the truth is, we found even more red heifers over the period of the next few months. And they were very, very special to actually dedicate these towards the Jewish people and towards the red heifer project and to everything that we're doing here. So that those are just, you know, some of the stories. Right. And there's many more to go on, but just one small nuance is that we say the red heifer is a ceremony. It's not exactly a sacrifice. And in Hebrew, I mean, we say ceremony is called a tekes. And if you think about those words, tekes and texas is where we found them. You know, they're pretty. It's another small nuance.
That's pretty cool. So you found a large number of red heifers, and you could keep finding them clearly. Now, each of these red heifers were not tagged, correct?
Yeah, these specific ones, we had eye on them and cameras and watching over them pretty much from the day they were born, to make sure that they go by all the laws and all the rules. And I mean, the issue was, now that we found them, number one is we wanted to make sure that we're not crazy. Like, how could this be? So we actually went back to Israel. We spoke to a number of rabbis, and we said, we're going to do a delegation of rabbis to come and check this out. So we flew to the United States, a delegation of rabbis to come and inspect, and they were amazed by it. Rav Azariah Ariel, actually, in 2018, he said that in 2 years we're going to have the year of Tafshin Pei Aleph. The year, you know, it comes out to 5,781. I mean, we're now in 83.
Right.
So, and he said this is before, you know, 2 years prior to that year. We're talking a year and a half ago. And he said that the acronym of those letters, which
are the Hebrew letters which spell out the number 5781, which was the Hebrew year at the time.
Exactly. Comes out to Taf, which is Tehe, will be. Shin, Shana, the year. Pei, heifer. And Para, and Aleph, Aduma, the red heifer. So this is the year of the red heifer. So that's what Rav Azariah said. And this is way before I even met Rav Azariah, you know. And let's fast forward to the year of Tafshin Pei Aleph. We were just starting to search for the red heifers. But the truth is that the ones that we actually found, they were in their mother's womb that year. And then we were thinking, okay, what's the next year? Tafshin Pei Bet. Teheshnat Para B'Yisrael, the year of the red heifers in Israel. So we said that is our mission.
You just made it.
So yeah, exactly. So we're like, that is our mission, is to bring these red heifers to Israel. But I'll give you guys a little bit of stories if we have time, if that's okay. I mean, to bring, who would imagine, you know, to bring like a pet dog or a cat is relatively not simple, but it's relatively easy, you know, to travel with one. But to travel with a red heifer is not easy, especially if the two countries have an embargo, one to another, not allowing them to bring them in, you know, verse versa. Like, and that was a big obstacle. It was like, how do we get these red heifers in Israel, you know? And there was different ideas. Maybe we could try to genetically modify these guys, and then in a few years we'll be able to find one, or maybe we'll be able to take the genes and a sperm from one of them, but at the end of the day, we found perfect red heifers. We want to bring them to Israel. These could be the ones. So We started a journey, and it was a very long journey, many months, many times that we tried to bring them in, and one time we were going to bring them right before Passover, and we got them a plane ticket and everything, and they're going to go in there. We got them the vaccines they need to take and the blood test tickets. Now I sound like an expert, but maybe because we had so many different types of attempts. But at the end of the day, they were about to get on the plane. Boom! They canceled the plane. Why? Israel, right before Passover, had a crazy demand for salmon. So instead of bringing in our red heifers from the United States, they brought in salmon from Oslo. Because everybody, I guess, they didn't know what was coming in the other plane. But anyhow, so they canceled our plane. Right, and then Israel's like, no, we don't let it stop in Belgium, and there's no direct flights, and we had to go in a cargo. But then we had an attempt to take them through London, and then we had to get the government there to agree, and then they agreed. But then they went back on themselves, and then Chicago to bring them, we had to drive them to Chicago. Eventually, we're like, okay, let's try then through El Al, United, Delta, all these different airlines, getting to the owners of El Al, who is also a religious Jew, but then an Orthodox religious Jew that just bought El Al like 2 years ago or so. I don't remember exactly. And we got him, and he was very excited about it. But then the planes that they have are not good enough in the compartment at the bottom where they would be, because they would just go in a normal El Al or a normal plane where there's 250 passengers on top, and in the cargo where the suitcases, you'll put there also the red heifers in a nice cage with all their food and water. But so the problem was in the El Al planes, it wasn't good enough. So we thought, let's try through Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is like this organization that brings Olim. So we tried to bring them with them, but then they needed a suitcase space on the bottom with every single flight. There was pack jam, which is also a prophecy on its own, right? We know that God will bring us back, and which interesting enough is that the following verse in the pasuk there is that I will purify you, sprinkle on you waters.
From Isaiah?
Yeah, from Isaiah, exactly. So it's like pretty amazing. Like, we're dealing with the years where also the majority of the Jews now are living here in Israel. And now this year, when we're just at the end of the Shemitah, this is all happening. So eventually, I could go on for a long time, as you guys could hear, but I'm not going to. I'll spare you that. That'll be for a different time. Eventually, we were thankfully enough to get them on an American Airlines flight from JFK 146 to Tel Aviv. So of course we had to drive them throughout basically 2 days it took to get them from Texas to New York. They were put there in a facility. I flew in, but then when I was about to take off with them, they canceled their flight, and they're like, no, it's too hot in Tel Aviv. I'm like, oh man,
too hot?
It's too hot. This is August, and they're like, no, it's too hot. You can't fly. I'm like, what does that mean?
Too hot for the cows.
Too hot for the cows. I said, what does it mean? How hot is it? They said it's 85 degrees. So I'm like, one second. These cows live in Texas. They're used to 100, 110. They're good. And then I also looked, and it was 86 that day. And 86 when they land, but a half an hour later, it already turns into 80. It goes down to 84. So I was like, could you guys let us? No. Those are the rules. And another thing to say is also part of how we were able to bring them in was we used like a ticket in a certain way. They were pets. Today, anybody could have any type of thing as a pet. So basically these cows were brought in on a ticket as our 5 pets. Very sweet 5 pets. Very big. But anyhow, so that was bringing them in. Eventually, we then flew them a month. It took a month until the temperature was right. And they landed, and that was unreal. I mean, some of you guys maybe watched. Yitzhak here was very, very great in kind of watching and showing the world what was going on there. And whoever didn't watch, I definitely recommend. Watch the whole hour and 15. It's very, very special, very, very spiritual, and a very special moment. We're looking at the date. I mean, it's the 15th of September. What happened 2 years prior to when they came? Abraham Accords exactly on the 15th of September. So it could be that maybe God is, for sure. It could be that God's trying to say, like, all these Abrahamic nations get back together, like Christians, Muslims. Oh, just a side note. Even we were looking it up in the Quran. It even has a whole chapter on the red heifer. It's the second, or it's the largest actually, a chapter in the Quran called Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter, and it talks about the red heifer, I think in verses like 66 to like 71. So it kind of was like something is going on here, like that. to Solomon, he couldn't understand. We don't really understand, but we do know that we need to do what God, commands us. And, miracles are happening all the time. They landed, as you said, exactly 12 days or so before the end of the year of the red heifers in Israel. Mm-hmm. And now we're in the, Tafshin Pei Gimel. We're very excited for this coming year. They're here in Israel. They went through, they had to go into quarantine in Heifer, and then they're now not far from Beit Shan. And they're doing well. We're feeding them. We're taking care of them. So that's it.
And one of them will be part of the ceremony ultimately. That's the hope. That's the plan. I
think that what I would say at this stage is we're taking step by step, because I also don't, we don't have any control. I mean, farmers could tell you this for sure, right? Like a farmer doesn't have, it's all in God's hands. We just finished now the sabbatical year, the Shemitah, where farmers are supposed to put everything aside, not touch anything. And now, is the 8th year or the first year of the next cycle. And God says, I'm going to give you, I'll give you plenty the year before, the year after. So it's not, in a certain way, the cows are not in our hands. We're just, so we're going to have to wait and see. But I think even for this moment, as we speak, we're this given day, I think that even for this second is that we need to think a little bit of, we need to come together. We need to come back, all of us. We need to real love that, trying to find the common denominator between all of us, something that we agree on so much, all of us, and with God's help, we're in the right time. We are continuing our searches for more red heifers. So if you hear this and you have a red heifer, don't tag it. Let us see it first. And we're, I think that the purity of the nation of Israel, and this commandment is not just for our generation. We need to be thinking, for the next 100, 200, 300 years forward.
Well, once the ashes are produced, they actually can last for a very long time, correct?
That's correct. Moses conducted the first red heifers ceremony, and his ashes lasted almost 1,000 years. I mean, just the ceremony itself, all you need is, you can use a huge body of water that comes from a spring, and then you throw in the smallest bit of ash, even smaller than a fingernail, and all that water is good to use to sprinkle on the people on the 3rd and the 7th day, in order to make them pure. So you don't need a lot of ash. And we know that Rav Azariah, they did a lot of different types of attempts of trying to figure out, and kind of like in a lab type of figuring out how much ash is conducted when you do a red heifer ceremony, and he came out that it's 4% is cow, 96% is actually all the wood that you're supposed to conduct this ceremony. So that is true. We're saying that. We definitely want to teach the nation, teach the world about purity, tum'ah, and tahara, and to learn, because just that all the listeners should understand is that once we have this red heifer ash, and we're able to create the ceremony and everything, it's bringing the Jewish people, but the whole world, into another phase. It's a phase that we're not used to. It's a phase that maybe COVID a little bit helped us start to understand what it means to be isolated, what it means to kind of separate yourself from everybody, what it means to be a whole nother level of spirituality, which it's hard for me to explain because I don't even understand myself. I mean, we've been missing this for over 2,000 years, and this is the key to the bringing this back into the nation, and into the world. So definitely we want to have some type of, we're working now actually as we speak in creating a center that people could come learn about the purity and learn about the history, learn about the red heifers, learn about, so much more than that.
Well, will be an actual red heifer at the center for people to see?
Yes, we're going to have a number of red heifers at the center. You'll be able to see them. And we're actually planning also to do, to look at it also from like a research perspective. So we're going to start to do research work, bringing in different professors to write up articles, also in the academia world, but also in the rabbinical world, and kind of aligning both of them, or comparing both of them, or contradicting both of them. So it'll be definitely interesting. And we definitely are living in magical times. I mean, Disney maybe started the magic feeling, when you go to, but at the end of the day, living and speaking, we're now speaking, we would say we're speaking here actually in a building in Jerusalem, overlooking the old city. You could see all of the old city. And this building that we're sitting actually in used to be actually the Iranian consulate here in Jerusalem up until 1978. Wow. And we're sitting in it as we speak. I mean, personally, I believe that very soon we'll be very good friends with Iran, and that whole will fall, that whole wall. But the fact is that whoever's listening to this, we're living in super special times, and it's just to be part of the story. And all you need to do is just to take part, is come, to see, to take, to participate in any way that you can, and to spread the word. And that's just as important, is to get out the word that these are the times that we're living. So connecting the people to God, connecting to what's happening. And I think one last thing I would say, this question is to open our eyes. A lot of times, we're just used to our day-to-day routine, and we just can't see what God is showing right in front of us. And I think these red heifers are eye openers. They're in a certain way, they're the key to the redemption, the key to the next step. And here we are, we're living, and we see them, and we're part of it. And whoever's listening, I'm sure that you guys are also definitely part of what's going on. So thank you guys for listening.
Hanan, thank you so much. This has been an amazing eye-opener. Who've been involved with this, learned so much about your experience and your insight. I'm sure that everybody listening got a lot out of it. Thank you so much, Hanan. A fascinating story, full of so much promise, so much hope for the future. I thank you all for listening. It's been a little bit of a long edition of Temple Talk, but I think it was well worth every moment of it. If you'd like to learn more about the red heifer, you can go to templeinstitute.org and go to the menu under Study Tools. The first topic is red heifer, a very in-depth article about the red heifer. And if you would like to contribute, to be part of this project and contribute to the upkeep, the feeding, the maintenance, the care for the 5 red heifers that are currently in Israel, and for the establishment of a visitor center all about the red heifer, as Hanan was explaining, you are welcome to make a donation. And you can also go to templeinstitute.org and just click on donate and designate that your donation is going to the red heifer. And if that option doesn't appear under the particular method that you choose to donate, then please just send us an email and we'll make sure that your donation goes to Red Heifer. Thank you so much for being with me and for being with Hanan. Temple Talk.